meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. At this point in time, I'll ask the city recorder to read the call. That's the only thing on the agenda tonight. That's the only thing that we'll be considering is what is on the call.
The Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Tullahoma, Tennessee will meet at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom at the Tullahoma Municipal Building at 201 West Grundy Street on Monday, August 7th, 2023. The purpose of this meeting is to consider approval of the process for narrowing the 7 applicants for city administrator as recommended by the Citizens Committee to 4. This is an open public meeting. The meeting will be recorded and broadcasted live on Channel 6.
Thank you. This time I'd like to ask Reverend Chevy Shields, if you would, to lead us in the invocation and follow with the pledge. Please stand.
Let us pray. Loving God, we ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead our great city, Tullahoma. We seek the common good for all and ask for peace as we move forward with confidence, knowing you are with us. We thank you for the wonderful leaders who are here this evening, and we ask that you guide us in wisdom and decisions as they are being made this evening. And all God's people said. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like the city recorder to do the roll call.
Ballmacher? Here. Berry?
Here.
Glick?
Here.
Noes? Here. Mann?
Here.
Mathis?
Here.
Wilson?
Present.
We have 7 present. At this time, I will open the floor to public comments for anything that's on the agenda tonight, and that's what's on the call. You have a list, city recorder?
Jerry Chesser?
Good evening. I'm Jerry Chesser. I reside at 100 Southampton Drive here in Tullahoma. And I've been a resident of Tullahoma for 41 years. And I've always taken an active interest in sports, community activities, and I also tend to watch Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and I personally know every one of you guys up here. But I come tonight to speak on behalf of Jason Quick, who is being considered, or hopefully being considered, for the open city administrator's position. I've known Jason for 25 plus years. Granted, some of that time he was in Alabama, but I've known he and his family for 25 years personally. Jason is a man of integrity. He's a man of his word. He's got great interpersonal skills, and I think he's a forward thinker, and that's what Tullahoma needs. He's born and raised here, went to high school, and to say he overcame some obstacles during his childhood would be an understatement. But Jason, again, came back to Tullahoma 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, to be the principal at Tullahoma High. And we were overjoyed when we heard that it was going to be the case. My granddaughter, who just graduated, she was the senior class president. And she had nothing but the highest regard for Jason his 2 years there. She always spoke highly of him, not publicly, but just privately. I'd always ask her, how do you like Jason as your principal? She was, Pops, I love him. I think he's a great guy. He's active in the community. He's active. Folks, I work up in the press box, football games, and there's not a single game in the last 2 years that I was at that he didn't come up, take the time to walk up to the press box, say hi to everybody, do you need anything, everything okay? So anyway, he was involved in all the school activities, basketball games, football games, soccer. I do the announcing for the softball team. He would come up and say hi to me at the softball. But anyway, Jason is a man of integrity. I can't say enough about him. Again, I think we shouldn't overlook the fact that, he's been around, and again, very forward thinker. Now, I will say I've known Kenny Pearson here for probably 25 years as well. And I think for a man to step up and do an interim job and do as fantastic that he's done. But I think Kenny, I took a trip down, went to the fire hall here about 6 weeks ago, and the morale is fantastic now down there. They love Kenny Pearson. So again, appreciate your consideration. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir.
John Miller.
Good evening, good afternoon. John Miller, 109 Troon Way. Good afternoon to this honorable board. If I could take a couple of minutes, thank you for allowing me to express my thoughts on our next city administrator. During my 32 years in the Air Force, I had leadership and management responsibilities with thousands of employees with yearly budgets in excess of $200 million. I had an additional 8 years' experience in managing 2 large contracts out at the base, so I understand firsthand what's required to be an effective leader and administrator. The board appointed me to the Airport Authority in 2005, where I served for 10 years, 8 of which were chairman of that board. It was during this time that the city agreed and supported our proposed major improvements and expansion projects that were completed, which today continue as more and more business come to the airport. During those years of pushing oftentimes contentious and potentially costly improvements, I worked closely with the then city administrator, Jody Baltz, and numerous other individual city department heads who I got to know personally, and they got to know me personally. We all established a mutual trust and understanding so vital when you're pursuing public projects. The city administrator, along with this board at that time, provided the support and assistance to bring those projects to fruition. Without the leadership and guiding hand of the city administrator, who understood what is in the best interest of our citizens, who had the trust and support of his entire staff, and who worked hard to make things happen, your airport would not be what it is today. Solving those challenges, combined with my prior work experience, gives me a unique perspective on what I think we should look for in our next city administrator. Let me give you the few challenges I think we ought to be looking at. Is the person merely using this position to gain experience for a resume in order to move on to a bigger and better high-paying job somewhere else in a few years? This job requires long-term stability for us, not a job hopper. Does the person know and understand our community history and the needs of our citizens? Or are they coming from a different area with no clue about us? Does that person have a solid track record of being able to lead and manage large organizations and large budgets? How well does he or she establish mutual trust and understanding with their subordinates and staff and with their own supervisors? Good leadership is a two-way street. And does that person have the ability to withstand the influence of special interest groups whose interest is theirs and not necessarily the citizens? Does that person have experience and proven success in the business world, or is their experience primarily within the public service sector? One of your candidates, Jason Quick, has the background and credentials to professionally lead our city into the future. Finish in just a second. He's earned a bachelor's degree in...
One second, Mr. Miller. I make a motion to suspend the rules on the time limit. I think the citizens' comments are equally as important.
Second.
Let me allow you to continue.
Thank you, sir. He earned a bachelor's degree in business education, a master's degree in educational leadership, and is nearing completion of his PhD. He founded and grew a highly successful multi-million-dollar healthcare business in less than 3 years. He was a highly successful account manager for a Fortune 500 company recognized as the world's leader in information management technology. He was a highly successful administrator for the world's largest publicly traded healthcare company focused on rural hospital and doctor services. He's been an administrator in public school systems. He's been a high school teacher, coach, assistant principal, and most recently here at Tullahoma High. His education, background, and credentials are impeccable, but even more important to me, and hopefully to you, is that Jason is a hometown boy who grew up here, graduated from Tullahoma High, spent 9 years in the business world, then another 12 years in the education world, and he excelled in every endeavor he's been in. He's demonstrated his ability to build mutual trust and understanding with people to manage large organizations. Jason came back to Tullahoma because he knows and loves the people of this town. He's not an outsider to our community. He's not seeking this job to pad a resume and then job shop to the next. He truly wants to serve the community he grew up in and that he loves dearly. Jason Quick should be our next city administrator. Thank you.
Jeff Johnson.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Aldermen. Jeffrey Johnson, live at 703 Davis Street. Really appreciate the opportunity to say a few things. I'm the senior Marine instructor over at the high school of the junior ROTC program. Going on my 8th year, and I have to say that I don't know Jason Quick as well as many of you. Had the distinct honor and privilege to work with him the last 3 years. Probably the least important speaker you will hear today, but I'm the most blessed and humbled to have this opportunity to address you about Jason Quick and his interest in the city administrator's position. Therefore, I'd like to say a few things on his behalf. As you've heard, aside from having the basic prerequisites like education, a broad spectrum of experience, having excellent communication skills, hardworking, dependable, etc., Jason Quick has all of those and more. I understand there is a scoring matrix to help decide who meets the cut line. However, I want to focus on a couple things that I feel that are essential for being the best candidate for city administrator that are difficult to quantify into a scoring system that are essential to the position. Jason Quick, in my opinion, will make an outstanding city administrator. First, Jason Quick is an emphatic believer and strong faith in God. As during the American Revolution and throughout our illustrious history, moral and faith-driven public administration is vital to the success of towns or city affairs. He is a believer, like that of Benjamin Franklin, that God governs the affairs of men. Moral oversight of our city affairs is wanting, and Jason Quick can bring it. Second, Jason Quick is a man of integrity, which you've already heard. To me, this is the best part of his character, and in my opinion, the single most important trait a city administrator can have. Honesty, truthfulness, and veracity is what Tullahoma needs in a city administrator. President Teddy Roosevelt believed bodily vigor is good. Vigor of intellect is even better. But far above both is character. President Roosevelt would stand with Jason Quick. Lastly, and to me, it's revealing and even illuminating who might be the best candidate when Marxist liberals start targeting individuals they fear the most. I've found it kind of baffling. Jason Quick appears to be the person that would jeopardize some self-serving, self-promoting agendas. It seems there's a little bit of the swamp right here in Tullahoma. Jason Quick should make the cut for an interview and receive serious consideration for the position of city administrator because he exceeds all the essentials for the position. He loves this city. He has the citizens' best interest in mind, but more importantly, he has the character to bring dignity to the affairs of the city. Thank you and appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Linda Johnson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Johnson. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. I guess I need to get a little taller, a little closer to this. I'm here to also recommend Jason Quick for the position of city administrator. I got to know Jason a little bit as a substitute teacher last year. So I hold him in high regard and high esteem. He's very personable, very easy to get along with, and I know the students really looked up to him. So I would encourage you to select a candidate who was born here, is from here, and has the best interest of the citizens at heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bertha Smith.
Good evening. I'm Bertha Reese Smith, a lifelong resident of Tullahoma. I currently reside at 106 Helen Street in Tullahoma. I've been proud to call Tullahoma home all 55 years of my life. I'd like to say a few words about my family's personal experiences with Mr. Jason Quick. I've seen our beloved city endure growth, stagnation, and most often, uncertainty. However, my son and I learned very quickly that uncertainty is never a word we would ever associate with Jason Quick. My son, born 3 months premature, weighing 1 pound 14 ounces at birth, came home from a lengthy stay at Vanderbilt's Children Neonatal Intensive Care Unit with a feeding tube, significant developmental delay, and a great deal of uncertainty about his future. As a parent who had already lost one child, my son Cadence is my greatest treasure. That is why when it was time for him to enter high school at THS 2 years ago, I again was faced with uncertainty and a great deal of trepidation. I struggled with making the right decision, doubting myself as a single mom. That doubt and uncertainty went away the very first day of school. There on the sidewalk, greeting every student and every parent in the drop-off line that morning, was Principal Jason Quick. I knew as soon as I met him that all would be well and that my son was in good hands. Although my son has very limited verbal interactions due to his autism diagnosis, there are very few people he approaches and interacts with. However, he approaches Jason Quick. He always felt safe with Mr. Quick, knowing that he was a man that he could trust. Last year, one of my son's IEP goals was for him to complete sentences when he was speaking. He often will grunt, or maybe grin, or maybe just say a few choice words, but never complete sentences. However, when hearing of Mr. Quick's departure as principal of Tullahoma High School, my son Cadence uttered one of the most complete and succinct sentences I've ever heard him speak, merely saying, "Mama, that's such sad, sad news." He knew right away that he was losing an ally, an advocate, and a man who supports faculty, staff, and students, whether that student had a 4.0 GPA or a 1.4 GPA. Tullahoma community, almost 54 years ago, Jason Quick and his siblings endured something that none of us should ever have to endure. He could have chosen to be anywhere else. He could have chosen not to return home. But here he is with us back in our community. As a woman of faith, I don't know your God of understanding, and that is none of my business. However, I know that the Lord I serve is a Lord of second chances. So I'm extremely, extremely grateful that we now have an opportunity to have Mr. Quick and his sincere servant's heart in a leadership role once again. So I look forward to you joining me and my son Cadence in supporting Jason Quick to be Tullahoma's next city administrator. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Erica Murphy.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. All of us here call Tullahoma
Name and address,
home.
please.
I'm sorry?
Name and address, please.
Oh, Erica Murphy at 219 Jennings Circle.
Thank you.
All of us here call Tullahoma home. For some of us, our job or our spouse's job may have brought us here. For others, it's possible we accidentally found ourselves here and planned to move on. For others, you were born here, grew up, moved away to college, maybe experienced life in the big city, and yet felt a yearning to return to that small town that your heart has always called home. The reasons may be different, but we all share a community together. Politics is not my passion. Community is. Not having experienced small-town life until I moved here with my family many years ago, let me explain why I was drawn to stay. In Tullahoma, we know each other. We know when someone is hurting, is in need. We know when there is a reason to rejoice. We extend our hand, we offer support, our guidance, and most importantly, our love. As we look to bring in a new city administrator, like most communities, we want to bring in the most qualified person. What those qualifications are may differ from one to another, but there are a few I believe we can agree on. I believe we can agree that we need someone who is a strong leader, and not just as a hot-button word, but someone who truly can lead a diverse group of people towards the best interests of our community. We want someone who can keep our town small, but in a big city convenient way. We want someone who will recognize we're a close-knit, caring community, but effectively addresses the natural growth our city is experiencing. And I believe we are open to doing so in new and innovative ways. Honesty, integrity, depth of character. These are all characteristics I believe we seek in the next city administrator. When I returned to full-time work last fall after being a stay-at-home mom for many years, I found myself working at THS alongside Jason Quick as his secretary. One of the first things he said to me was how important it was for him to be out of his office, in the hallways, out in the classrooms. He wanted to be with the students and teachers. He wanted to feel the heartbeat of the school. And as often as possible, that's where you would find him. He took old traditions and made them new again. Friday Night Lights has never looked so good. He brought about an era of being present with the students wherever they shine brightest, academically, sporting events, STEM or scholastic competitions, concerts, whether with home field advantage or away from our great city. Soon other staff members began to do the same, leading by example. When one staff member lost a loved one, when a new family found reason to rejoice, he shared in their victories or their grief. He treated each person, student or faculty, with respect. And more importantly, he encouraged, admonished, or praised from the heart of someone who wanted to see you succeed. He has a servant's heart. He led the THS community with over 150 teachers, 1,200 students, countless support staff, with innovative, challenging ideas, and built an atmosphere of excitement and positivity. He exudes enthusiasm. He walks with integrity and expects the best from all those around him, student or staff. He didn't sit behind a desk, and he made sure he knew your face, and more importantly, your story. In short, he leads from the trenches, and that's a leader I can get behind. An interesting item to note is that the school board hired him knowing that he didn't have experience as a principal yet. They must have seen the same thing in him as I and so many others do. Or maybe they accepted his experience of successfully running corporations with budgets larger than Tullahoma and staff larger than that of the high school. as comparable and saw a candidate whose vision and dedication should not be turned away. And I urge you to see the same. A job can be taught, laws can be studied, but character is built one success over failure at a time. So whether or not Jason Quick has the experience in politics, whether or not he's lived within the city limits his whole life, Tullahoma is where his heart calls home, where he rests his head at night, and where he rises to give the best of himself with every sunrise. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Olive.
John Olive, 405 12 Oaks. I appreciate the opportunity to address you all in a very tough situation. You all seem to go from one tough situation to the other. I'm up here, I've worked with Jason Quick for the last 3 years. Has he made me happy all the time? Absolutely not. But I always knew he had my back. Okay, and to me, I think that's important when you're trying to work with different organizations and different parts of a school system. You're not going to agree on everything. I think he's a visionary. I think he can paint big pictures. And my only request is that the local candidates, that we at least give them a chance to interview. If they win the interview, great. If they don't win the interview and you hire somebody that's better than them, great for the community. But I just think we're at a point where we need someone that knows our community. And that it doesn't have to be from our community, but they need to understand what a town like Tullahoma is. And I try to explain that to coaches all the time. Get involved in your community. When you're winning, everybody loves you. When you're going 0-10, nobody loves you, except those that you've gotten down and done things with. So anyway, I appreciate your time. I don't want to take any more. You've heard all the other accolades.
Thank you.
Craig Sandlin.
Good evening, Board, Mayor and Alderman. Greg Sandlin, 106 Albemarle Drive. I have a suggestion regarding this important hire for city administrator. Whomever you hire needs to be able to manage growth and change. An Air Force press release last week outlined how $1.6 billion of investment are coming to ADC for hypersonics testing upgrades and new facilities. So we need city leadership to execute sensible zoning and development plans to accommodate at least a portion of the many engineers and craftspeople that will be moving here. I'd like to see a lot of those guys move to Tullahoma, those folks. So let's grow smart and steady and continue to be an aerospace center of excellence. And let's hire a city administrator who can manage this change. And I do think having someone local, someone who's been at least lived here a very, very long time is critical so they can be just properly vetted. You know, not someone from the outside who we really don't have a lot of history with. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Uline.
I'm Kevin Uline from 105 Granville Court, Tullahoma, Tennessee. You've heard a lot of accolades. I'm not going to reiterate, but I am an advocate for Jason for this position. I've known Jason for about 28 years. It's quite a while. And I believe he's a great candidate for the job, given the opportunity to interview for it. I have with me 12 letters of support. I'll give each of you a copy from 6 Tullahoma City school leaders, teachers, 7 citizens, and then you just heard from another 8 citizens advocating for Jason. I just wish you give him the opportunity. He's a great guy. He's got great morals, ethics. He's a hard worker and a true Christian. So, who do I give this to?
Thank you.
Marvin Sellers.
Thank you, Marvin Sellers, 207 Terra Boulevard. First off, I want to say I appreciate Alderman Berry seeking public input for this selecting of the new administrator through a survey. However, I chose to offer my comments tonight publicly at this meeting. I'm concerned how this process is proceeding after reading the agenda and minutes. It appears to me that the BOMA has ceded their role in evaluations to non-elected citizens, whereby they have narrowed down the 37 candidates to 7 for the selection of 4 tonight. I have no problem with the committee ranking them through the process, but it should be the board who down selects from the list while considering the rankings. I'd like to see the criteria for these rankings to understand how the results were obtained that were in the minutes. The city administrator position is very important to the direction of the city that will move. For that reason, I feel like more weight should be given to the 2 candidates from Tullahoma because they have a vested interest in the city, more so than someone using this as a stepping stone to a bigger job. I urge you now to postpone this vote until each member of the board has time to review each of the candidates thoroughly. And I did not even know about all the other comments that were going to be made about Jason and I, but I think as proposed tonight, he is not even on the list to be considered because he is below the line of 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
George Wilson.
George Wilson, 408 Albemarle Drive, Tullahoma. In life in general, but particularly in professional situations, you're considered a qualified expert based on education, training, and/or experience. All of the people on this list are qualified. Qualifications alone are insufficient for selection of any job. I spent the first 20 years of my career in Charleston, West Virginia at 2 small hospitals. In that length of time, I had 3 CEOs. All were local. One was there for the entire 20 years. One was for 10 years. Consistent professional guidance. I moved to Arizona and then Tullahoma. I was again in small hospitals. The main difference is that these hospitals are part of giant corporations. In those 10 years, those 2 hospitals had 12 different CEOs. If you hire someone who is not from here, or at least from another small town, you are simply hiring someone who is going somewhere else. That person will reap the rewards, and we will pay the price. The 2 applicants from Tullahoma should be number 1 and number 2 on this list. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maureen Burke.
Good evening. Maureen Burke, 107 Breckenridge Road. So I'm not aware of the candidates, but I do recognize that this is a really important position for the city and for the future of our city. I do echo what's been said tonight, that we need to have someone who cares about Tullahoma. I also am a little bothered about the process because it sounds like it may not be a fair process, and I would like to see that going through the proper vetting, every person getting an opportunity. Tullahoma, the city administrator, I think, is probably kind of like running a corporation, but Tullahoma City is not a corporation. It's a place where we all live. We are a community. We pay taxes, and we want it to remain that way. So I think that someone who is vested or will become vested and is willing to listen to the people is what we need to look for. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Anyone else that would like to speak that's not on the list?
Scott Van Velser, Fairways Boulevard. I'm up here to advocate and lobby for the process that I thought this meeting was about. I didn't realize we were going to advocate for an individual. That would have been, this board chose a citizen committee that reviewed all of the applications that were submitted to the city. So the notion that we are not, that it's not electeds that are making this decision, I don't really think is true. The people that were on this committee, and by the way, I was the only citizen that went to one of these meetings. I feel like this type of lobbying would have been a great place to go to do that, to lobby for individuals. And I'm trying to summarize my thoughts here, because this position for me, Tullahoma is a corporation. At the end of the day, we are a business. We need to make money, we need to spend money, we need to take care of everybody that works for us. And for me, I look at this process as it is just business for me. There's no personal feelings involved in it at all for me. So when we have leading citizens in our community looking at applications with a rational eye, totally devoid of personal feelings, that's the type of decisions that I feel like should be made by this board and taking into consideration. The localism angle has always been an interesting one for me, because I don't think that this city would exist if we only hired local people. It does make sense. I mean, throw your hat in the ring. Let's go through the process that you guys have started and created, and let's see how that all shakes out. But we need to be looking at everybody that was put together by MTAS and that this citizen committee put together. So I'm up here advocating for the process. I'd really like to see that followed and seen through, versus just who is the most popular or can get people to meetings. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Patty Dean, Albemarle Drive, Tullahoma. I've been involved in hiring processes for college faculty, and I understand the use of MTAS is a really good starting point for this process. They know what the job description is, and they look at what kinds of questions and what kind of criteria do we use to try and generate a list of people who qualify for this position. However, I really hope that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will review what those criteria were. Because MTAS, their job is to fill municipal positions with people with municipal qualifications. It doesn't really matter if you have someone that maybe they've got maybe the same degree, maybe the same background, and yet they've used that degree and that background in other non-city roles, and have had other roles in which they've used the same types of qualification and skill set that you need to run a city the size of Tullahoma. So I really want to know, and what I would feel is that what MTAS set out is biased toward people that have municipal backgrounds. So that if someone actually has a similar or even more applicable skill set, they're not going to score very highly, because they aren't a part of the City Managers Association, or because they're not a city manager. So what I would really hope that BOMA would do is make sure that people who have the appropriate and absolute best qualification weren't overlooked because of their lack of city municipal experience. That's not necessarily what Tullahoma needs. And I didn't have any, I was not planning to get up here tonight, but I want to just make sure, I've been involved in these sorts of things, in hiring college faculty, in science-related technology. I'd have a whole list of people with these degrees, and then I'd have military veterans that had amazing qualifications, but you know what? They didn't score well because they didn't fit in the little boxes of the criteria. And I couldn't hire them because they didn't fit the rubric. They didn't fit, the assigned qualifications. So I really hope that you will look at all of the candidates, give everyone that you feel might be a good person for this job, and that you'll give them a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If there's no other comments from the citizens, we'll close the public comments. And we'll go to the approval of the agenda. And I will remind you, in the special call meeting that we have tonight, you heard the call, and that was to rank the 7 candidates that were presented from the special committee that were sent down to all of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. That's the only thing that we'll be doing tonight, is ranking those 7 members. Motion to approve the agenda. And I will remind you that we either approve this agenda or we don't do anything. That's the only thing that we can do, is what's on the agenda. And just because we rank the 7 that we have tonight does not mean that others could not be added at a later date.
I don't see 7 names on this list. Could you clarify?
Say again, please.
Specifically,
on the agenda, I don't see.
On the agenda, I don't see 7 names.
It's in the call. It's in the call.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a point of order.
Purpose of the meeting is to consider the approval of the process for narrowing the 7 applicants.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a point of order, and I'm probably going to steal it from Kurt, because I know he handed me something as I walked in. Point of order is, this agenda item would be in direct conflict with the amended process that we passed. And I don't believe we can have a meeting that is in direct conflict of the actual process that we passed. And so I guess at that point, nobody should make a motion to have this meeting. So it should be transferred to the next meeting where we can amend an agenda item, because I'm aware we cannot do that in a special called meeting.
And also, if you will look at this, it states the BOMA is to review all applications and narrow to a group to be interviewed. And I think that's all in our venue to do that. Not something that we're going to cut it down to 7 tonight. I don't think that's right. I think we need to do what's right, and that's what this right here states.
Any cut should have come from the board.
From the board needs to do it.
If no one makes a motion, then this just dies and it's done. And then we're just throwing that out as a Robert's Rules thing. So he makes a call, and then everybody's silent, then it dies for a failed motion.
Well, and it's already, because no one's...
Well, I will make the comment that the Citizens Committee was appointed by this board everyone nominated a person on this board to serve on the committee. The committee that we appointed selected these 7. If we didn't want that committee to select, we appoint them.
Yes. Point of order. Let's step back. So we can't have a discussion until we have a motion on the floor. So if we're going to discuss this, then we need to make a motion, have it second, and have a discussion. Otherwise, by parliamentary procedure, this needs to either die or somebody needs to make a motion and second so that we can have discussion. Otherwise, we're out, our board is out of order.
I make a motion to end the meeting and start a study session.
Motion to adjourn and start.
Motion to adjourn and start in a study session so that we can have the opportunity to discuss.
Can we do that without public notice?
The only thing we can do at this special
Study
call
session,
meeting,
we don't vote in, so they don't have to be.
the only thing we can do with this special call meeting is to do what's in the call. So with that, this board is adjourned.